If you died right now, what's the first thing you think you'd feel? Fear? Regret? Or would it be something else entirely, a kind of invisible emptiness where everything you once thought mattered suddenly loses all meaning? I never had an answer to that question, not until that day. The day I collapsed onto a cold tile floor, surrounded by the smell of bleach and the slow drip of water in a rundown restroom at the end of a street no one remembers. There was no heavenly light, no voice calling from the sky, just the sound of my own body hitting the ground, heavy and final, like a door slamming shut. But then, I was still there. Not in flesh, but in some strange form of awareness. I saw myself, that body that used to be mine, now lying motionless, empty. And yet, in that moment, I felt more present than I ever had before. No pain, no fear. But one thought kept circling, deeper and deeper into my consciousness. Is this the end or the beginning? In the haze of that unseen realm, I heard something, not a voice exactly, more like a vibration, an echo of something I once knew but had forgotten. A gentle reminder, almost mournful. Silas, you're not done yet. There's something you still need to remember. Something important. A reason your soul once chose this place is to endure the pain, the confusion, just to be alive. But alive? For what? If I truly chose to come to Earth, why did it have to hurt so much? In the next part, I'll tell you about the first being I encountered after death. Not a figure, not a name, but something that knew everything I'd ever hidden, even the truths I hadn't yet admitted to myself. I had no idea where I was drifting. There was no sky, no ground, no direction, no time. Just a vague sensation of being unwrapped, as if every outer layer, name, career, role, status, was peeling off me like old coats. I was no longer Silas Grayson, no longer a man who once lived. I was something purer, more original. And then, I was no longer alone. No one walked toward me. There were no footsteps, no face, but I knew something was near, incredibly near, as if it had been living inside my thoughts all along. A presence that didn't need language or introduction, yet it knew everything about me. Every act I'd committed, every thought I'd entertained but never acted on. Every time I faked a smile to cover the hollow ache clawing at my core. I didn't see it, but I felt it. The way you feel sunlight on your face, even with your eyes closed. It didn't ask for my name, didn't ask who I was. It is simply understood. The light wasn't cold, and it wasn't blinding. It was soft, warm. It wrapped around me like invisible arms. But the most staggering thing of all was this. I didn't feel judged. I had always imagined that if there was an afterlife, I'd be interrogated, that some god or sacred judge would open a book and read out loud every mistake I'd ever made. But that didn't happen. No one condemned me. No one called me wrong. No one labeled me a sinner. Everything simply was, as if my soul was being allowed to see itself honestly, without distortion, under a light that didn't flinch. I remember thinking, I don't deserve to be loved. I've wasted too much. I've hurt too many good people. And the presence of the light responded, not with words, but with a feeling so overwhelming it brought me to tears. Silas, you don't have to deserve love. You are loved because you are. I had never heard anything like that in my life. Until then, I had lived by one rule. Try harder, succeed more, make people proud, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be worthy. But now, all of that has collapsed. Not in fear, but in deep, soul-deep relief. Like I had just taken off a mask I'd worn for so long, I'd forgotten what my real face looked like underneath. I began to feel those questions that had always lived deep inside me, the ones no one had ever been able to answer. Why was I born? Why did I have to hurt? Why did I always feel misplaced, like I'd been living someone else's life? And in that exact moment, the presence somehow placed me before a doorway. Not a physical door, but something I can only describe as a threshold of perception. I don't know how else to explain it. All I knew was this. If I stepped through it, I would never be the same. I hesitated. I was afraid. I had thought death was the end, but I was wrong. Death isn't the end. Death is an unwrapping, and stepping through that threshold is seeing the truth. Not the truth of the world, but the truth of yourself. The presence didn't push. It waited, patient, gentle, like a teacher who has been waiting for their student to be ready. I asked silently, "If I walk through, what will happen to me?" And the answer came not in words, but in a wave of understanding. You will remember. You'll remember why you came to Earth, and you'll remember how to go home without needing to die again. I nodded, not with my head, but with my soul, and I stepped through. In the next part, I'll tell you what happened when I saw my life not through my own eyes, but through the emotions of those I had once touched. The hugs I never gave, the apologies I swallowed, the small wounds I left behind became deep scars in others. All of it came into view, and I could not look away. When I stepped through that threshold, there was no sound, no blinding light like in the movies, just a strange sensation, as if I were falling into myself. Not falling down or across, but inward, deep. So deep I could hear the silence of my soul, a part of me I had never touched while alive. And then it began. It wasn't like watching a movie in slow motion. It was more like standing inside a space where every moment of my life existed all at once. There was no time, only memory, vivid and alive, pouring in with stunning clarity. Every emotion, every glance, every pause. I saw myself at age 7, hiding behind a door while my father shouted at my mother. I saw myself at 17, standing outside on the school lawn, lips tight, watching a friend get bullied but too afraid to step in. I saw myself at 28, ignoring the last message from the woman who once loved me deeply because I thought I was too busy. I saw myself, again and again, hurting the people I loved. Not out of cruelty, but because I was too wrapped up in myself, too tired, too distracted, too lost in my noise. But the haunting part wasn't what I saw, it was what I felt. I didn't just witness those moments, I absorbed them. I felt the pain of others as if it were stitched into my skin. I felt the sting in my mother's eyes when I turned away. I felt the hollow ache in my ex-wife when she said, "I'm fine," but she was silently crumbling. I felt my shame in all the moments I chose silence over courage, distance over presence, self-protection over love. And I broke down. Not because someone was judging me, but because I saw myself, with a clarity so honest it was almost unbearable. I had always thought of myself as a good person, but now I saw I was only trying to be good when it was convenient. I thought I had loved, but now I knew real love isn't a feeling, it's an action, it's presence, it's the choice to stay exactly when someone needs you most. And then I saw the things I had done that once seemed so small, they felt meaningless, now shining like warm beams of light. A time I pulled over in the rain to help an elderly man cross the street. A time I sat in silence while a friend wept, offering no advice, just presence. A time I sent my younger brother a text just to say, "I miss you." Those moments, scattered and quiet, now blazed brilliantly through the stream of memory, as if the universe itself was whispering, "Anything done in love is never truly lost." I also saw the opportunities I had missed, the what-ifs that would never return. But instead of drowning in guilt, I felt gratitude. Gratitude for being shown, for being allowed to see, to remember. I turned toward the presence still beside me, like a friend who never left, and in my heart, I asked, "Can I make it right?" And the answer wasn't yes or no. It came as a trembling sense that filled every part of me. You don't need to go back to the past. You only need to live what's left with a heart that has awakened. In that moment, I didn't know whether I'd be given the chance to return to life, but I knew if I was, I would live differently. Not more perfectly, just more honestly. I would stop trying to prove anything. I would stop running from what hurt. I would learn to face it, learn to listen, learn to love, even without expecting anything in return. I had seen myself, not the version I curated for others, but the raw, unguarded essence of my soul. And I understood that was the true beginning. In the next part, I'll share with you the moment no one ever prepared me for, the reunion with the souls I thought I had lost. Not through a phone call, not in a dream, but in a real, holy meeting between two worlds. Words that were never spoken finally found their voice, and the love that was never given finally found its way back home. I don't know why I saw them, or whether it was imagination or some deeper layer of reality, but what I do know, without a doubt, is that they were real. Not in their old forms, no age, no defined faces, and yet I felt them. As clearly as you feel sunlight on your skin in the quiet of early morning, you don't have to see the sun to know you're being warmed. The first to enter that space was my mother. Not the frail woman in the hospital bed I last saw, but the mother from my memory. Her dark hair flowing, her eyes soft with sadness and grace, her voice like a lullaby soothing the tangled memories inside me. She didn't blame me for not getting there in time. She didn't bring up the weeks I missed our calls because I was too busy. She just stood there, present, with a love so unconditional, so complete. Her gaze said more than 1,000 words. I understand, and I never left you. I wept. She didn't need my apology to forgive me. She didn't need to touch me, to hold me. And in that moment, I realized the greatest pain in my life wasn't losing my mother. It was continuing to live as if she had never been a sacred part of me. Then I saw Sam, my best friend from middle school. We once promised we'd make music together, but time pulled us apart. I chose safety. He chose freedom. A motorcycle crash ended Sam's dream far too early. I never went to his funeral. Not because I was busy, but because I lacked the courage. I was afraid to face what I'd lost. Afraid to admit I'd broken a promise I never meant to abandon. But when Sam appeared in that space, he just smiled his old crooked smile, the one he'd flash whenever I missed a chord while we were messing around with guitars. You know, he said, I still hear that song you never finished in 10th grade. That sentence wasn't just nostalgia. It was true. He had been watching. He had never disappeared. None of them ever do. And then came the soul that brought me to my knees. A child I never knew I had. 12 years ago, during a brief encounter with a woman I never saw again, I had no idea she became pregnant. But now, standing before me, was that child. A small soul, quiet and luminous. No anger, no bitterness. It didn't speak. But what radiated from it made my chest tighten. It knew I was its father, and it had already forgiven me. It just wanted me to know one thing. It had chosen me. Even though I never got the chance to show up, it still saw me as part of the journey it had chosen. Do you know what's more terrifying than being hated? Being forgiven when you never believed you deserved it. All three souls, my mother, my friend, and my child, held no blame for me. But their love, their unshakable presence, illuminated the darkest corners of my being. The places where I buried guilt. The places where I stacked up regrets, always telling myself, I'll apologize later. But later never comes if you're already gone. That's when I understood. Death doesn't take away our chance to be loved, but it can take away our chance to love in return. And if we keep waiting for the right moment, for perfection, for readiness, we may end up missing the most important person in our lives. I bowed my head, with all the humility my soul could carry. And in the dim glow of that sacred space, I heard the voice of the presence again, the invisible companion who had walked beside me all this time, whisper, "You have seen what you needed to see. Now it's time to remember why you came to Earth." In the next part, I'll share with you the greatest truth I was shown. Earth is not a place of reward or punishment. It is a soul classroom, and we chose to come here. The only question that remains is why? I used to believe I had been thrown into this life as a punishment, that I was meant to suffer because I had done something wrong in some past life I couldn't even remember. I saw life as a harsh series of trials, a place where only the strong, the clever, or the lucky could survive. But when I asked the presence, not with anger anymore, but with a deep longing to understand, I was given a truth so powerful my entire soul trembled at its sound. You chose to come here, not because you were being punished, but because you were brave. At first, I didn't understand. Why would anyone choose pain? Choose loss, loneliness, poverty, or illness? Why would a soul willingly enter a life filled with wounds? And then, the presence opened within me a memory I didn't know I had, a memory from before I was born. I saw myself, not as Silas Grayson, but as a being of light. No form, no gender, just essence. I stood in a radiant space where time moved like thought, and every soul emitted its music. I saw other souls too, my mother, Sam, the child I never met, even people I once considered enemies. And we were all preparing for something immense. A descent to Earth. There was no force, no command. We were not assigned. We were invited. And when the question came, I raised my hand. I said, "I'll go. I want to learn how to love in a place where love isn't guaranteed." It sounds contradictory, but that is the nature of growth. Light means nothing until it passes through darkness. Love becomes real only when it survives pain. I chose my parents, even knowing they wouldn't be perfect. I chose to lose my mother early so I could learn to cherish time. I chose a heart full of cracks so I could discover that light can enter through what is broken. Every challenge, every fall, every person who came and left, none of it was not random. They were all part of the soul script we had written together in a place I once called home. Earth is not a courtroom. It is a classroom. We didn't come here to be judged. We came to practice love under the hardest conditions possible. I was shown a classroom of energy, where souls, after death, are not judged by God or any divine judge, but by themselves. There is no scolding, no punishment. Each soul is simply asked one question: what did you learn from your experience? And if the lesson isn't complete, they're given another chance. There is no eternal damnation, only repetition until understanding is born. I realized that everything I once thought had broken me, from the emotional neglect in my childhood to the humiliating failures in my adult life, was not a curse. They were chosen lessons. My soul wasn't a victim, it was a student. And Earth, with all its chaos, injustice, beauty, and mystery, is the greatest classroom in the universe. I was also shown something else, something that struck me to my core. Every act born from love, no matter how small, leaves a permanent imprint in the field of energy. A word of encouragement, a look of compassion, a hug that says, "I see you," even without words. They don't disappear. They resonate. They expand. They return. And I thought about how many times I stayed silent when I should have spoken. How many times have I hidden love out of awkwardness? How many times I waited for the right moment to say I love you, to apologize, to hold someone close, but the right moment never came. And I made a quiet promise. If I go back, I'll live as if every moment is a chance to love. In that space, I didn't ask, "Can I return?" I asked, "Is there still something I need to do?" And the presence-loving, wordless voice that had stayed with me responded not with instruction, but with a gentle reminder. You haven't yet shared what you've just remembered. In the next part, I'll tell you about the most important decision I've made, perhaps in my entire existence: to remain in the light or return to a body that had already died. A decision that wasn't easy, but it held within it a message I believe you need to hear. The reason you're still alive is not an accident. I stood before a choice no one had ever prepared me for. To walk into the light where everything felt weightless, like the soul's very first breath, or to return to a body that had already died, where pain, grief, responsibility, and shadow were waiting. I knew that if I chose to keep going, I would dissolve into absolute peace, merge with the source, no more wounds, no more questions. But I also knew that if I returned, I would carry everything I had just seen, every lesson etched into my soul like fire into iron. And that would change everything. The presence didn't push me. It simply remained, silent, steady, as if the choice itself was the final lesson. No one said, "You must." No one ordered, "Go back." But I understood if I left, what I had just remembered would never be shared. I thought of Sam, of my mother, of the child. I thought of the people still walking the earth but dead inside. They didn't need a sermon. They needed proof. Proof that the light is real, that love never dies, that death is not the end. So I chose to return, not because I was brave, but because I couldn't keep the truth to myself. The moment I agreed, I felt a vibration ripple through layers of energy, as if the universe nodded, as if a door was being opened backwards. And then I fell, but not fast. I feel like a feather, light, steady, falling into a denser reality, a heavier world. I saw my body cooling on the hospital table. I saw the nurses who had given up. I saw the light of my soul draw near. And then I re-entered, not through will, but through a wordless declaration. I'm not finished. And then I breathed. A rough, ragged inhale like someone pulled from the depths after being under far too long. Someone screamed. Someone ran to get the doctor. But for me, all the noise, the fluorescent lights, the sterile smell of antiseptic, it all felt distant and small. I had returned. But I was no longer the same. I was not who I used to be. My body was weak, like slipping back into an old, worn-out coat I hadn't worn in years. I couldn't move for days. I couldn't speak for an entire week. But inside me was a storm. I had brought everything back with me. Images, memories, emotions, lessons, all of it still alive, still vivid, as if it were still happening. And I had only one desire: to tell with my heart, to tell my life. Can you imagine what it feels like to wake up in a world you once thought was your home and realize it's a classroom? Every person you meet now carries a soul shining just beneath a weary mask. Every conversation you used to think was ordinary suddenly feels sacred, enough to bring tears. You begin to see the pain hiding behind someone's eyes. You hear the quiet cries for help hidden in the words, "I'm fine." I started writing, at first just for myself, to hold on to the things I was afraid I might forget. Then I shared with a few others. They went silent. Some cried. Not because I'm a gifted storyteller, but because what I brought back touched something they had forgotten in their own lives, that they are loved, that they matter, that they are not alone. That's when I understood. I didn't come back to preach. I came back to remind people of something ancient, yet never out of date. We are living a soul journey, and everything, even pain, has a purpose. No one told me how long I'd live after returning, but I no longer count days. I count on meaning. I no longer fear death, because I now know it isn't the end. It's a threshold. The real question is, will we cross it with regret or with gratitude? I'll tell you now about my new life, not some rosy journey, but a constant reminder to live honestly, to love fully, and to forgive while we still have the chance. And remember this, if you're reading these words, maybe, just maybe, you're being called to awaken too, just as I once was. When I walked out of the hospital, no one realized I had died. They saw a man who survived a strange medical episode, a miraculous recovery. But no one except me knew that the person now walking in the body of Silas Grayson was no longer the old Silas. I wasn't living to control life anymore. I was dying to listen, not to the noise of the world outside, but to something quieter, deeper, the subtle but unmistakable voice of the soul. I started over with the simplest things. A cup of tea in the morning, sipped slowly with gratitude. A hug for no reason. A soft, "I'm sorry," spoken the moment the heart stirred, without waiting for the right time, without needing everything to be perfect. I stopped hiding behind, "When I'm free, we'll talk later, maybe tomorrow," because I had learned, later is never guaranteed. But this moment, one right here, is always real. I didn't tell people I had seen the light, that I had traveled through the realm of the soul, that I had been forgiven by those I had hurt. No, I didn't need to say it. I just needed to live in a way that anyone near me could feel they were touching something real, something radiant, something eternal. I began writing not because I was a writer, but because I had witnessed something that demanded to be remembered. I told what I had seen in the plainest, truest language I could find. I began hosting small gatherings. Some came out of curiosity. Some came in pain. Some came because they didn't believe in anything anymore. But many of them, after listening, simply nodded in silence, tears quietly rolling down their cheeks. Not because they understood, but because they remembered. Something in them knew. Something life had buried under busyness. We weren't thrown into this world. We chose to come. And we are still being guided. I met a 16-year-old boy who had once planned to end his life. After reading my story, he wrote me, "I don't know why you came back, but if it was just to help me stay alive for one more day, then I think that's enough." I hugged him. I didn't need to say anything. I understood. And I knew I didn't come back to save the world. I came back to rekindle a single spark, one light, one person, one moment at a time. I also learned how to forgive not others, but myself. To forgive the times I stayed too quiet. To forgive the chances to love that I let slip away. To forgive myself for believing I wasn't good enough to be loved. Forgiveness, I realized, isn't a single decision. It's a daily practice. A continual choice not to let darkness take root in the heart. Someone once asked me, "Are you sure what you saw was real?" I smiled. I don't need to be sure, because the truth isn't something you prove. The truth is what changes the way you live forever. And I have lived differently. Every moment now carries a new color, presence, gratitude, lightness. If you've made it this far, if something inside you is stirring right now, then I just want you to know this. You're still here for a reason. Not because you're not good enough, not because you're being tested, but because your soul is still learning a lesson, one that only you can learn. Maybe you're hurting. Maybe you feel lost. Maybe you're doubting everything, even yourself. But please don't give up. You're not lost. You're just in the middle of the lesson. And sometimes, the darkest moments, it is the very sign that the light is near. I died, and I was shown why we exist. Not to prove anything, not to race, not to collect power or praise. We exist to remember who we are, and then to become love through action. You don't need a near-death experience to wake up. You just need to pause right now and ask yourself slowly, what part of me hasn't lived fully? What haven't I said? What haven't I given? Because if you start there, you're already on your way home. Thank you for still being here.